Industry Foundation is focused on scaling certain value chains which have a lot of global demand. We take the work to where the women are.
So today we have with us Ms. Neelam Chibbar, who is the co-founder and managing trustee at Industry Foundation and co-founder director at Mother Earth. For the past 3 decades, she has been working on regenerative economies with parts of India's 200 million strong artisanal workforce by providing design, technical, marketing, and management solutions to bridge the rural-urban divide. And for her work, she's been awarded with awards such as the Indian Social Entrepreneur of the Year Award 2011 from Schwab Foundation and L'Oréal Paris Femina Women Award 2012 for social impact. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Chibbar. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you. My pleasure being here. Yeah.
And just to begin with the conversation, so what are the key impact areas and flagship initiatives that Industry Foundation is running currently, and how did you just decide upon just focusing on those areas?
Yeah. So Industry Foundation is deeply committed to the cause of the artisanal sector in India, which we also call the creative manufacturing sector. And we have the world's largest population of people in the creative manufacturing space, and markets are dwindling. But I think now, post-COVID, there's a huge resurgence in an interest in a new regenerative economy. And we believe this workforce can really contribute to that. And we have a very, very clear focus on working with women. That is it's a very key impact area, because we find that for these artisans and producers to get their due, it's very important to collectivize them, right? And ensure that they are in collectives or producer companies they own. And we find that journey smoother with women. And therefore, there's a lot of focus in our value chains on women's economic empowerment, their social empowerment, making them become more resilient to life's crisis, as well as improve educational outcomes for their children. And there's also a carbon mitigation angle, because these enterprises are usually low carbon footprint.
Wonderful.
So these days, Industry Foundation is focused on scaling certain value chains which have a lot of global demand, like lifestyle and fashion sector.
The foundation, like you mentioned, is working extensively with these local artisans and rural communities. So what are the models that you are following to, bring them all together and create like a self-centered, sustainable kind of model for these people to also pitch it to the mainstream value chain producers?
Yeah. So basically, we focus right now on banana bark craft. It's handmade basketry for IKEA globally. We also look at non-timber forest produce, which is the sal and siali leaf plates. And because of the focus on women's economic empowerment, we have received support from USAID through their initiative called the Women's Global Development Prosperity Fund. Because once these women are collectivized and put into the value chains that they own, we use something called the 6C framework. It's an ecosystem approach. It's whereby we collectivize them and form them into producer companies. We call that construct. Then they are exposed to capacity building or training or skilling. Then our third C is create, which is design or value addition. Our fourth C is channel or market access. And our fifth C is capital, because they need access to working capital, because that's a huge issue in this sector. And the last C is connect, or the kind of digital training and digital connectivity, ERP systems, etc., that we are providing to the collectives. So we work within a 6C ecosystem framework, and this is the methodology we use. That unless all the 6 C's are provided in tandem, you are not going to see self-sustainable businesses that they own. And we also give them access to professional management services, because we realize that the most vulnerable women in communities may not have the abilities to transact with large global customer, large national level customers, and move into formal value chains. There are a lot of compliances to be followed, and that's why we offer them professional management to help them achieve all those targets, right? Quality, timely supply, all those pieces.
Great. And like you mentioned that all these aspects, so say something like a digital skilling aspect of, how to sell the products online, or something of a management skills that you offer to these women in the rural areas. So apart from USAID and IKEA, like you mentioned, so which are the other corporate or non-corporate partners that you're working with currently to expand the work across the country?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in addition to the USAID supported Power Initiative, we also have CSR funding from HSBC as well as from Target Foundation, which is based in the US, right? We have very strong support from HSBC CSR for 3 years to help build these value chains that are owned by the women, enabling also the fact that they fit into global supply chain, and it's a form of enterprise building activity within India. And then we also have support from UNDP. We have active support from the Karnataka State Bamboo Mission, as well as also from the Andhra Pradesh government. We are also NSDC partners, the National Skill Development Corporation. So we are NSDC partners in all these initiatives. Yeah.
Amazing. And like you mentioned, the bamboo partnership with the Karnataka government. So another project that you're running is Bamboo Resource Center in Channapatna. So can you elaborate on the same, and how is that helping the local communities?
Yeah. So as I had explained, the 3 key value chains we are focusing on in the Power Initiative is the banana bark, which is the natural fiber. Then it's the non-timber forest produce, which are the SAL and CRLE biodegradable leaf plates. And the third value chain is bamboo. Bamboo, as we know, has huge potential globally. And I think with Atmanirbhar Bharat, there is going to be a huge effort, because the bulk of global manufacturing in bamboo is focused in China. So I think India is slowly, state by state, developing a very, very strong state bamboo missions, which are all anchored in the National Bamboo Mission, which is based out of the Agricultural Ministry in Delhi. And so we are working on bamboo plantations for 1,200 hectares of farmers, as well as in bamboo enterprise. And so the first business livelihood incubator that has been supported in Channapatna, which is also called the Bamboo Resource Center, is being supported by the Karnataka State Bamboo Mission under the Power Initiative. And here we shall have all the machinery, the equipment. It will also be a prototype center and a design center to produce in volume and scale. And it's a hub and spoke model, where the final checking, packing, and the training hub is in Channapatna, whereas the production spokes are in Mysore, Hunsur, Koppa. So we have spokes of 50-50 women because we do not expect the women to migrate for work. So they will be in the local communities where the Medars live. That's the plan.
Wonderful. And like you also touched upon the point of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So there's another campaign that they've launched around Vocal for Local, and as we all know, that also like pushing the artisanal rural communities to publicize their products out to the mainstream production houses. So how would you say that campaign in particular has helped the products, or have you also like ridden the same wave of that campaign in your projects?
Yeah. So I think Vocal for Local is a great beginning. But as we know, we are still in the midst of a deep recession, and we are seeing that buying in fashion is dropping a lot, but home is doing really well. So yes, I'm sure we shall be reaping the benefits of the campaign. It's still to be seen, but since we focus a lot on global markets, I think it'll be a great balance. We shall see a greater demand within local markets for this kind of indigenous production, which is really critical. And we'll also see a lot of increased global buying, because I think a lot of global corporations are also wanting to de-risk their supply chains, because COVID has exposed weaknesses in having too much of your supply chain concentrated with specific countries. So everybody wants to diversify, and therefore I think it's a great opportunity for our Indian creative producers.
And talking about the COVID scenario that we're currently in, so like it's already disrupted a lot of production houses across the country. So manufacturing has halted at a lot of places, and since the artisanal work is also something that requires human labor, so how have you been able to continue that for these people, or have you taken some certain measures to be able to have them sit and work on the products?
Yeah, so actually, I think it was COVID that kind of exposed the strengths in our approach. Because we found, first of all, that we don't migrate women for work, right? So we take the work to where the women are, right? As we know in India, we have a falling women's labor force participation, right? We have almost the same amount of women in labor force participation as Pakistan, which is not very complimentary. But having said that, it's very clear that women find it very, very tough to migrate to urban centers for work. Usually they accompany a man, and oftentimes the man just goes alone, right? And they're left behind. And it's very tough because, as we know, that all the social security systems, the ration, everything doesn't migrate. So the women kind of stay back. And also with the small land holdings, somebody has to be there to safeguard all of that. So we take work to women where they are. So we do not migrate them. This also prevents them from trafficking and so many other vulnerabilities that they're exposed to. And therefore, during COVID, what we noticed was this is a great model. And that is why it's also a good time to talk about it. Because women we do a lot of regular impact assessments, social audits, and our latest social audit has revealed that 50% of the women come from walk to work. 50% of the women 30% of our women are sole earners. So either they're widowed, they're divorced, or they're single, right? And so the kind of impact it has on their lives, and through COVID, when we saw millions of people who were migrating back to villages, we already had our women where they were and working. And I think we had to close down for 3 months, but we ensured that all the women got their stipends through the period because of the fact that they are within an institutional framework. They are in collectives that are handheld by Industry Foundation. So we reached out to donors, and ensured. And the USAID Power Project was really there to support them through that period, right? Sure. And so were all the other donors, whether it's HSBC or Target, right? And therefore, immediately, I think in 3 months' time, as soon as things started opening up in Europe, IKEA immediately revived its orders. And so now supply has started. And all the norms are being met, related to COVID. So that the women are back at work and able to regain their earnings. Yeah.
Well, that's great to hear that already, that even the pandemic couldn't stop your will to actually empower these women in the grassroots areas. And there's another interesting, I would say, mission that you're running or plan to run, which is by the name Mission Creative Million, through which you aim to strengthen the resources for producers in the next 10 years. And so can you just elaborate on the same, and how do you envision that, helping these people?
Yeah, so Creative Million, we launched, I think, in 2017-18, and its mission was that over the next 10 to 15 years, it would impact about 1 million producers and their families. And therefore, the Power Project is a way to enable that to happen, right? So through Power, we impact 6,800 women directly and around 54,500 people indirectly, right? So, and additionally, with all the other resources we have, we are able to impact about 135,000 women now, right? So therefore, we have to ensure that we can keep scaling the models. And since they are self-sustainable, because we initiate this through philanthropy or through CSR or through aid, but once the collectives become self-sustainable, then they will be on their own feet and they can continue giving work to the women. And we don't have to keep looking for funding. So it's a model that thrives on aid, but it morphs into becoming self-sustainable, right? And therefore, the plan is that once we show the initial traction, we should be able to raise more money to take the pathway to impacting the a million producers.
So, just summing it all up and coming to the end of the conversation. So, how would you say that the CSRs or even these organizations in the grassroots levels, so say the NGOs or these self-help groups, should prepare themselves and also the people that they're working with for a post-COVID scenario where the livelihood opportunities might need a lot of intervention in terms of digitization?
Yeah. No, I think it's completely appropriate. Digital skills are key. And as it is, when we do even in this initiative, we are training micro entrepreneurs, which are the individual women. Then we train micro entrepreneur leaders. Then we also train paraprofessionals who are managing them for quality, etc. And through the pandemic, we've been doing everything on Zoom. Now we've got our micro entrepreneur leaders who have mobile smartphones and who can come for all these meetings on Zoom, right? So it is, I mean, it's going to be a way of life. And I think in many ways, COVID has accelerated digital adoption, but I think it's critical. All our payments, in any case, for all the collectives, all our payments were digital. There's a lot of digital financial literacy we've been working on. So COVID's been a good way for us to kind of cement that and try to build that out a little faster. And so I think that is a way forward, because finally we have to cut costs. Because if we want to become globally competitive, I think a lot of the travel, a lot of the physical movement will have to stop.
And I couldn't agree more. So that just brings us to the close of the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Neelam. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
எனக்கு வந்து என் வீடுன்றது எப்படின்னா, இந்த வேலையெல்லாம் பார்க்குறேன்ல, இப்போ காலையில் எழுந்திரிச்சு நைட்டு தூங்க தடிக்க இந்த வேலையெல்லாம் பார்க்குறேன்ல, அதுலேயே எனக்கு ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம். இதுதான் என் குடும்பம் அப்படின்ற அளவுக்கு அதுதான் சார் எனக்கு ரொம்ப பிடிச்சது என் வாழ்க்கையில். எனக்கு ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமானதுன்னா என் பசங்களை நல்லா பிறப்பட வச்சு சாப்பாடு ஊற்றி ஸ்கூலுக்கு பிறப்பட வைக்கிறதா சார் எனக்கு ரொம்ப ரொம்ப. என் பசங்களை எதனால நான் வேலைக்கு முக்கிய காரணத்துக்கு நான் எதனால வேலைக்கு போகிறேன்டா, ஃபீஸ் கட்டணும். அப்போ ஃபீஸ் கட்டணும்னா எதனால இங்கிலீஷ் மீடியம் படிக்க வைக்கணும். நல்லா இதோட பெரிய வீடாக கட்டி நல்லா பசங்களுக்கு 2 பேத்துக்கு வீடு கட்டி நல்லா அவங்கள செட்டில் ஆக்கணும். நானும் சந்தோஷமாக இருக்கணும். முடிஞ்ச அளவுக்கு என்னடாண்டா என்னால் முடிஞ்ச அளவுக்கு ஒரு 100 பேர்த்துக்கு வேலை வச்சு கொடுக்குற மணிக்கு ஒரு இதாக ஆகணும் சார். இன்னும் மேலும் எல்லாத்தையும் நான் மட்டும் உயர்ந்தது பத்திலேருந்து எல்லாத்தையும் முடிஞ்ச அளவுக்கு கொண்டு வரணும்னு ஆசையாக இருக்குது சார்.